Hi, I'm Melissa again. I'm here with the team from Matt McDonald. We're going to make water and the future of cities exciting for you today. So we're talking about the power of data and data-driven decision making. So I'm just going to introduce the team here. So we're starting on the end. We've got Steve Cooper. And he is the digital ventures leader for the Asia Pacific and Australasia for Matt McDonald. We've got Nazreen Tomasi, who's the product lead from Moata Smart Water at Matt McDonald. And we've got Maria Mingalan, automation and computational design global lead. So what's cool about these guys is they all bring a different perspective, and we're going to talk about something very relevant, but so we've got a structural engineer, we've got a process engineering person, and we've got resources and sort of hydraulics experience. So we're all over the water conversation today, specifically weather events, quality of water, so quantity and quality, as we said before. So I guess we'll just start a little bit. Are you guys able to we've had some flooding here recently, and so I'm from the South Island, so I haven't really been across the flooding.
Lucky you.
Yeah. Well, lucky us, but a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if you remember, it wasn't quite so lucky. Mm-hmm. So there's a being in sort of the land space that I'm in, there was a conversation about how do we even use what was learned from the earthquakes, how do we get better at responding to that, which is kind of that conversation we're having today, and Hawke's Bay and Gabrielle as well. So Maria, do you want to just talk a little bit about sort of the scene, what's been happening and how you guys are working with what's the recent events happening in Auckland and that kind of a thing?
Yeah, sure. So I think maybe to start, I think when I talk to colleagues and I talk to, well, not just colleagues at Matt McDonald, but people in the public, mm-hmm. there's this general sense of worrying about the flooding events, and also about the emergency in the climate crisis that is taking place. Yeah. And at the same time, it really feels like to actually these days talk about a sustainable future mm-hmm. for all of us. It's really about building resilience. Absolutely. For the climate crisis, and I think today, I think ourselves here in the panel, I like to think that we're going to talk about novel ways in which we can address those problems, and potentially thinking about how you actually build with data as opposed to how you build with traditional materials. Great. So perhaps also looking into not just the events that have recently and horribly affected all New Zealanders, mm-hmm. I think in one way or another. We could take a look back into 2020 and what happened with the wildfires in Australia. Yep. And then as well, those situations were also taking place in California mm-hmm. a few years later. Canada. And Canada as well, and in Spain and Portugal, it happens pretty much every year, and not just in summer, but also in spring, because of the very dry conditions, very hot weather. Yeah. And here we've been suffering from quite the opposite, which is just storms, high winds, and Cyclone Gabrielle. Yeah. And I think it's also something that was mentioned by the MP Honourable Ginny Anderson the other day when we were at Tech Week, right, on the opening ceremony, that flood and essentially becoming more resilient to these flooding events is front of mind for the government. I think, and what you guys are doing is living it day in, day out, right? And so the definition of resilience is kind of having more levers to pull, being able to respond faster, right? And I think that's what I'm excited to hear, some real life examples of what you guys see is possible with and data gives us that ability to respond faster, right? So, do you want to?
Yeah, I think we've worked a lot with Auckland Council in that space, and especially it's been a journey actually, believing it or not. Like, it's not only the last events that triggered more response. We've been working with Auckland Council for the last 7 years, and it all started with actually getting a bit more of an understanding of the rainfall that was actually falling. Great. I'm not sure if you've said that you worked in this space as well, but traditionally you're using rain gauges and they are just scattered around and you don't really understand what's happening in detail around the rainfall. And for all these elements, like if you talk about drought, if you talk about water quality, like actually understanding the rainfall is really important. So one of the first things that we worked on is actually in partnership with multiple people, taking rain radar information from Met Service and actually analyzing this data set. And it's a massive data set, which was super challenging back in the days. You know, you're talking about 50,000 cells, having data at a 1 minute resolution, getting it at a 500 meter resolution spatially. But this is giving you so much insight. So that was really a key component during the last events that we had, understanding where we had the rainfall and automating all the processes, which usually were done, manually by a GIS specialist or taking this data, downloading, computing, and now all of that is automated. So as a rain event is unfolding, you get more information. And what we're working on now, following this event, is actually going one step further and understanding now that we've got this confidence in the water and how much water is actually falling.
And where it sounds like.
Exactly, and where it's falling with a lot more accuracy. It's actually understanding the impact. So once again, traditionally we've got ways of doing that, and we've been using hydraulic models, which are quite accurate and resolve equations, that have been created like centuries ago, but they are very slow in terms of computation time. Even with the machines that we've got right now. So we've combined AI and machine learning to train our models from these hydraulic models and provide answers, and these are models that are updated every 7.5 minutes as more data becomes available. So really a new way of understanding what's happening, and also at a very accurate level. Like we were talking with Maria about the latest events and having these warnings, sent to everyone, not understanding if your house is actually going to be affected, if you should be evacuating. And now that we've got more information about the actual location, I think there'll be a lot more confidence about sharing the information that we have. And I think the public is also is becoming very smart and can take this information and make decisions for their local situation.
Well, I'm just thinking, someone shared in Australia, the rain falls, and then because it's so big, it takes days to have an impact on some, the collection of the river. But that didn't happen in the Hawke's Bay, right? And so having that ability to respond quickly and can save lives.
I think I was asking as well, wondering, because we talk a lot these days about AI and machine learning, especially with the hype that we are living right now around ChatGPT. So I was, I guess, poking Nasreen as to, but so why is it that machine learning is actually helping versus, it's actually not just helping, but being making such a difference as opposed to the traditional methods of the hydraulic modeling. And perhaps it's important to hear from her also what new insights it might be.
Because you said we went from what was a human being that was going to be able to sort of punch the numbers, and now we've got automation.
And that's the problem that you've got with traditional ways of actually computing information. And these hydraulic models, it's actually quite niche, so you need like a few specialists. So if we go back to the event that we had in January, we want to model and check where actually we believe things have been impacted so that we can plan for these events a little bit better. The problem is that first you need to find the specialists who are not busy, you need to contract them, then you need to get them on the job, and then they need to provide the data. We're still waiting for the data right now. While if you've got AI, we actually had these models in real time as the rain was happening. So it's a massive difference getting an understanding of what's actually happening, where you can deploy resources, and ultimately I'm hoping that we can share that with the communities.
Well, that's the whole kind of mission of NZ Tech, right? Technology for a better New Zealand, which if we could respond, and being foreigners, I come here and see how much the weather, we're the land of the long white cloud, a skinny little bit of a land in the middle of a turbulent sea, right? So there's opportunity if we can be excellent at this, right? What can we teach the world? What can we bring to other people? So it's amazing work. Do you want to say anything more about that before we shift gears to?
I think we can shift gears and talk about.
I was going to say, Steve, we want to talk about digital twins, which is a little bit of a tangent from there, but there's a bigger picture with.
Well, it's kind of the same thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing with the digital twin, which is a kind of digital representation of the physical world, is we're using the data and the techniques that Nazreen's talked about, and in particular, it's making the data more accessible, and then using the modern technologies and techniques to make it more available, not just to the engineers and the scientists who are interested and want to do the work, but actually to the general public. And I really like your theme up here, See Tomorrow First, because that's exactly what we're trying to do with some of these digital twins. It's about predicting outcomes.
Yep.
And then, providing insights and then connecting those to outcomes. And a good example of a digital twin that's live and available and has been around in Auckland for a number of years is the Safe Swim program that Auckland Council runs. And with that program, we collect, actually it's about 8 billion data points a day, isn't it, Nazreen?
That's right.
And
I'm counting them all.
And we suck those data into our platform, Moata, and Moata is a te reo word for early bird gets the worm or readiness. So
that's great.
It has its heritage in a business here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And we developed it as a platform in partnership with Auckland Council and with Watercare and some of the other council utilities. And what that does is it pulls all this data together. It's really good at ingesting data, applying analytics, and then presenting the outcomes. And there's a public website, safeswim.org.nz.
Yeah, I use it.
You've been there? Okay.
Yeah.
So the public can go there, and that predicts what the quality is going to be like in 2 or 3 days' time.
Great.
Even though it takes a couple of days to get bacteriological samples to the lab and get them measured, and that's because it uses the information, looks historically at what's happened, and it's able to predict what's likely to happen with quite a bit of accuracy.
That's like a real life, like a general public who doesn't necessarily live in water quality or stormwater management, actually does get the benefit
That's
of
exactly
that.
right, yeah.
I was just thinking, can you imagine if birds could see tomorrow first? How early would they be to the worms? It's a very New Zealand example, a bit of a dad joke there for you.
Thank you, Melissa.
They're going to fire me.
No, she's great.
Can we, building. So there's like the water, there's the quantity of water, quality of water. But we talk about sort of the future of, we're building our environments that we want to live in quite dense cities, and obviously that's going to be crucial for how do we manage the population and everyone's needs and that kind of thing. You have a unique perspective on how might we do that for what do cities look like in the future that might be data informed, and what kind of data points are you looking at to make those decisions?
Yeah, well, I hope it's not unique in that, hoping that more people share the same vision, and so we can actually realize it. Because one of the things that you need to realize any of this or implement any of these novel technologies, and I said one, but it's like the most important one is people. Right? It's people really engaging with this new technology. So on the use of digital twins for, I guess, going back to what I referred to at the beginning, like that idea of building with data, not with
tell me about that.
Materials.
I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I think it's about using data to operate the existing infrastructure better, right? And being able to get new insights as well from that data that you wouldn't have been able to access otherwise.
Yep.
So I think it's for people to actually think of that scenario. Perhaps I could propose that people go and try to think like, I got no materials, no steel, no concrete, nothing like that to resolve a problem. And I'm given, instead of the traditional materials, I'm given a comprehensive digital twin of the city.
Yep.
And then I'm given the challenge of, okay, you've got to improve the the traffic congestion in Auckland.
And change nothing that involves physical materials. Is
exactly.
That
and don't build something new or larger.
So what's your answer?
Oh, yeah, right. I'm going to ask you for the AI.
You can ask ChatGPT.
Well,
the
ChatGPT could just be to look at Google traffic before you leave. And go at a time when there's not as many people.
Well, it sounds like I want to hear more, but it sounds like there's a real design thinking. Like how do we actually, we are wired with a prefrontal cortex. We can think about the future, right? So enabling all the technologies that we have to enable that better information to think forward. So do you have an answer can you give us a real world?
How are you going
I
to
can
fix
give you perhaps an example that it's not the obvious example that which obviously it would be to build a new crossing, but then that comes with at the expense of more asphalt, therefore more runoff surfaces that will impact your flooding models as well. More deforestation, and then more costs as well to maintain that new infrastructure. So perhaps by using a digital twin, the beauty I think is that you can test solutions and alternatives that might be a little bit more out of the ordinary. For example, you could look into the city patterns of like how people are arriving to the buildings and the occupancy of the buildings throughout the day, and then test out, okay, what would happen if we were to stage the arrival and the end of the day journey for people, to come into the city and go home, and then perhaps if you are Auckland Council, you could think of incentives that you can provide to landlords to reduce the rent for companies who decide to stage their, those times of arrival and end of the day. So in a way, it's like you're trying to really use what you've got in the best possible way using data. Yeah. There is something we were commenting this morning that it really, it really gets me going when I live in the city and I walk around the Wynyard Quarter and I walk around the city at times when it's not like peak. And it's empty. Like a lot of it is empty, and it's just like empty concrete, empty asphalt. And I'm like, we are still maintaining all of this, and there is no use, consistent use throughout the day, and you're just designing for peak times.
It's a problem, for all infrastructure assets as well. Like you always build for the peak. But then during so that means that you've got a lot of concrete, you've got a lot of expense, you've got assets which are complex to manage, but then you've got 80% of the time where they are underutilized. So it's really finding this balance and trying to find better ways of
it sounds like the building companies of the future will be optimized first, and you cannot order a load of concrete until you've proven that you can use what you've been given. Like your mum said, you can't have dessert until you eat your dinner.
And I think that's right, because if you keep building, then you're compounding the problem of climate change because of all the emissions. A lot of emissions go into building. So if you can find operational ways around it, then it's definitely going to help.
I was going to ask you guys if you can give me just enroll me in what the future looks like in your world. What is an Aucklander experience when we're optimized, when we can respond to floods faster, when we know where we can. What does that look like? Tell me a little bit about what a data-driven experience of being an Aucklander looks like.
So I actually did mention this to the team earlier today as well. Like my vision of the future, perhaps going back to the traffic example, would be when we have autonomous vehicles, we wouldn't need so much infrastructure, right? And I don't know if you've been in India.
I haven't.
In India, people drive with like very small distances between the cars because I guess they've got built in this ability to react to
respond faster.
And it's amazing because they use they might have like 3 lanes of traffic, but it is like not a single empty space. Right? Like, and there are people crossing at the same time, pedestrians and people on scooters, and it's just like the most efficient way like to use that infrastructure. And so when I was there, I was thinking like, this is how the world will look like when we have autonomous vehicles. It would be like swarms. And then the actual need for the build infrastructure would be less.
It's almost like to the human eye, it looks like chaos, but to the AI, it's organized.
Yeah.
Is there any You kind of got a little bit of time left to tell us the idea.
I think we'll just be a lot more informed, and we'll expect this information to come through. And it's already coming. Like we actually make decisions, and I won't go back home if the traffic is too bad, and I will delay that. But I think you will expect that everything will be a lot more connected. Your washing machine we were talking about, and all of that will actually, be
stormwater is full. You can't do washing.
Well, or you will just put your load in the morning, and your washing machine will decide when it's time to run, because then it's off peak, there's less power consumption, there's less water. And
what if you could program your robot to put your laundry in like whites
we'll
and
do that
colors?
as well. And it will make your coffee in the morning.
Yes. I think
you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to use your device to order your flying Uber into town.
Yeah.
Your washing machine will tell you how much washing you need, your fridge will tell how much beer you need to stack.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. It will order by itself as well.
All of your energy and water systems will be networked, so you'll understand, and the general public can then start to make their own decisions about some of these.
Cool. Hey, thank you guys for sharing all your insights and your experience. I imagine people don't really know what's happening behind the scenes, so Auckland's in good hands, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.